Okay. Hey, everybody. We've got Adrian Rurawhe with us today, who is the former Speaker of the House, a man with a really impressive political lineage. Um, I'm really curious, actually, and we've had a few people ask us to ask you this. How hard is it to fit into the position that you're in now, knowing that you've got the legacy of your grandparents and your great-grandfather sort of looking down on you and what you do these days?
Well, first of all, greetings to everyone.
Yeah.
It,
The important thing, say hi
it,
first.
it's a serious it is a serious legacy, and I'm very much aware of it. And I suppose that it's like part of the story and part of the reason why I'm here, because of those memories and expectations from my community, the people that I live with, and Rātana who decided for me that I was going to be a member of parliament. And um, I didn't have much say in the matter, but of course, I knew that was always a possibility. I'd been around it all my life. I grew up with people that actually weren't related to me, but people like Koro Wetere, who I called uncle because I thought he was. And so that was always in my background, and it was quite just normal. I thought everyone's uncle was in Parliament, and grandmother, who I was 20 when she passed away, so I knew her really well, and spent a lot of time with her. Lucky to spend a lot of time with her. And remember very clearly some of the discussions of the time, that the quartet or around the dinner table was usually three topics: sport, mainly rugby and netball, politics, and church. So we those were the discussions that you. And if you had other interests, well, you were probably having conversations with other people outside the farm.
How much of an influence on the way that you approach Parliament comes from that interaction with your grandmother? I mean, she was the first female Māori MP. That's an amazing legacy to follow in. How much of what you do today do you sort of sit there and go, well, this is something that she would have done or she would have supported, or I can't believe I'm doing this because she would never have done something like this? Is there an element of that to how you approach day-to-day life in Parliament?
Yeah, and interestingly, like she never ever once gave any sort of instruction, certainly around politics. It was just being part of and hearing those discussions. Um, what she did do, I mean, the time that I spent with her, she used to get me to read passages from the Bible for her, she'd say, "Read this," and I'd read it, and then she'd always ask me what I thought it meant, what were my thoughts about it, and then I'd give them, and sometimes she'd say to me, "Read that again." Um, and she, interestingly, she not once told me that I was right, and she not once told me I was wrong. Um, she just, I think she was inquiring as to how I was thinking about it. And I
Hmm.
often think back, oh, well, I'm pretty sure she was giving me some life lessons through them. And they certainly have had an impact on the way that I behave, and my understanding around faith, and how you treat other people. So those were the kinds of lessons and the kinds of things that were important to her. And of
I
course, I
know.
didn't know my grandfather, who she followed, because um, he passed away, and then she became a member of parliament.
Well, as I say, when you took over as speaker, I remember reading the interviews, and one of the things that you were really adamant about was being fair, because there's
Mm.
always criticism of the speaker as being a bit biased because it comes from within one of the political parties. Um, that sounds like you were being trained up for that kind of. Like, I take everything on board and be fair with your responses and how you consider what's being put in front of you. It sounds like she had you trained up for that role ages ago. Yeah.
Without my knowledge, so I mean, I think she did that with all of her grandchildren. That one thing I do know about her is like Um, she was, and actually, my mother was the same as well. They treated us the way that we needed to be treated. So, and all how they kept up with everyone, I don't know. But if that one needed this, then that's what they got. And if she clearly identified that, oh, this is what was important and this is what you need to know. So this is what the knowledge that I'm going to impart with you. And I think that kind of carries on today through my generation and the next generation. We do the same thing. So I think at a political level and at a personal level as well. Those lessons are really important. But being fair in the house, and sometimes it's just the. I mean, I made rulings that were actually really technically outside of the rules of Parliament, but
Mhm.
it seemed like the best. Sometimes reading the room is really important, and I think I was able to impart to the House that I was being fair, and despite the fact that it might not have strictly been in line with standing orders, the House accepted it. So, you know, and you can only do that if the House has confidence in you.
Yeah. Impressions on how Jerry's doing?
Um, by I think he's doing a pretty good job myself. I mean, um, there's certainly things that I would do differently.
Hmm.
And actually, in saying that, if I had the opportunity to be speaker again, there's some things that he does that I would start doing as well.
Okay.
I think I actually think he's a lot more chilled than I am, which is I thought I was pretty laid back, but he has his own style. Every speaker has their own style of doing things. The important thing is that you apply the rules. I believe you should apply them fairly, and that you work from the same rules. Now, that it's inevitable that you will get to um, implementing them um, differently, and the judgment between what's in order and out of order. There's so many different rules that one can use. For example, if a member asks a minister a question that is probably strictly out of order and you let them do it anyway, and leave it up to the minister to handle it. And sometimes the minister, um, unprovoked, gives an out of order answer.
Hmm.
And you've got to try and find the balance between the two of them. You don't want to be the referee that blows the whistle on every single thing. Otherwise, the speaker's going to end up inserting themselves into, um, you know, the free flow of the conversation, which it should be. I mean, it's the people's house; it should be able to flow. But you still have to abide by the rules as well.
So, do you think your prediction in the house came from your ability to read the Bible to your grandmother?
I think like before I came to Parliament, I'd spent a lot of time on governance organisations, and like I was on a school board of trustees at Māori Kura for 13 years and chair for 10 of them. I chaired my hapu for nearly 20 years, and those are not easy governance entities to preside over, and uh, more than anything, I gained so much from being able to facilitate discussions and those sort of forums. Because let me say that, like in hapuhois, there's not really a great set of standing orders that people abide by. And if one of the aunties want to all of a sudden change the agenda, they're probably going to do that. And it's really, and MPs can be a bit like that. Sometimes, they think that the rules don't quite apply to them. And so yeah, you gotta, as I said before, you gotta read the room and because I believe that implementing some things, and any member can do this, can cause disorder by saying something, and that in itself is out of order. So, try and I've got to say that our current speaker, I think he does a pretty good job in bringing calmness back to the house when it gets unruly. So, and I would do it. I definitely do it differently. But if you get the same result, then I think that's okay.
And how are you impressed? How impressed are you? Sorry, that the younger generation, like Mighty Clark, are now coming into Parliament and having that youthful impact on the Parliament.
Oh, I think it's awesome, and I try as much as I can encourage new members. I think this place would be a better place, and I think if people understand the rules, so I'm very encouraging to the newer members across the house. Actually, if someone wants to come and ask me about parliamentary process, I'm happy to do that. There's plenty of help through, especially through the Office of the Clerk. It's something that when I was Speaker, I spoke often about, is that the Office of the Clerk is the expert on parliamentary procedures, and that's the place that members should go to find out what the rules are.
Mm-hmm. What are your feelings within your roles as whānau ora and Māori development? How do you feel about how this government is attacking those areas?
I think it's really unfortunate. I had the honour and privilege of working for Tariana Turia in the early 2000s when she was a minister in the Labour government. And actually, I stayed with her when she went to and formed the Māori Party. Actually, so I was around when this whānau ora kaupapa was being developed, and it's as a kaupapa, it's been around for a long, long time. But then it became a government policy, which is quite different because whānau ora belongs to all of us. And I think the government is losing a huge opportunity by the way that they're treating it, because I think it really hasn't developed to the point where it could do. And in the 6 years that we were in government, we took the funding quite to a much higher level, and we're setting it on a pathway to have greater impact, because the whole philosophy is about strengthening families and giving them the tools to be able to do that for themselves. And I think the way that the current government is using it is not going to achieve that. And I point to Puni Kōkiri's recent report around thriving families.
Yeah.
And they gave three scenarios. One scenario was if governments did nothing, what would happen? If they progressed it to another level, when we would achieve a high level of whānau thriving. And then the third one is like a much, much greater whānau ora kaupapa. And the reality is that what the government is doing is a fourth scenario is actually taking it backwards. And I think that is really unfortunate.
You have a role at the moment as well on the Māori Affairs Committee, it's almost unique in terms of committees because it's got such a broad sort of area that it covers. I see that the chairperson of that committee, Dan Bidwar, has blocked the Waitangi Tribunal from presenting to the committee. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are around that and whether or not you think that's a justified step for him to take in that role, or what is it that he's trying to stop them from saying?
Yeah, well, Māori Affairs Committee, by tradition, is quite collegial, and I've been on the Māori Affairs Committee both when we've been in government and when we've been in opposition. And all through, usually, it is about what is the best interest for Māori. And so, even when we've been in the government, we've agreed to do inquiries into or get briefings on particular subjects that have impact on Māori. Now, a report from the Waitangi Tribunal, I think, is pretty important, and that it be a reasonable thing for a Māori Affairs Select Committee to ask it to come and brief us on that report. Over the years, there's been all sorts of briefings, briefings from the likes of Farm Act, briefings from, we basically can ask anyone to give us a briefing on any topic. They all impact on Māori. This is the first time that I've known that the committee has decided, well, it was 4 in favour and 4 against, and unless you have a majority, it means it doesn't pass. And so the 4 government MPs voted against having a briefing from the tribunal, and the 4 opposition members voted in favour of it. And there we have that situation. We will carry on. There are other reports as well. Recently, there was a report, a police report, about racism within the police force, and I'm probably going to write to the committee and ask it for a briefing on that report. And at some stage, it's certainly my hope that the committee will agree. I don't know what the problem is, because it's just asking for more information, which is actually publicly available, but hearing it from the people who wrote it would be, I think, quite illuminating.
There's obviously a little bit of tension at the moment between the government and the tribunal, because the government doesn't seem to want to pay attention to what the tribunal has to say. From the position of being in opposition at the moment, how do you feel about that? Like when you have a judiciary like the tribunal, which is supposed to be separate from Parliament, because that's how the judiciary works, saying these are things that you could do better, or these are really problematic concerns that we've got, and the government just going, we won't even talk to you. Is there something, like, as an opposition MP, do you feel frustrated by it? Is it do you sit there and go, well, this justifies how people feel about the Parliament, the government at the moment?
It flies in the face of the what I understood was there was to be a mutually respectful relationship between Parliament and the judiciary, and it's really important that that is maintained. And now we have ministers actually making, I think they're unparliamentary myself, comments about the judiciary. Well, it's really not acceptable. Just because a judge or a tribunal makes a decision that the government doesn't like, and then making comments about it is just not right. It's part of our democratic process. The different parts of our democracy, and the judiciary plays a very important part. And the Parliament shouldn't be criticising them for doing their job. And I think we should be quite concerned about the state of our democracy when we have ministers of the Crown doing that.
Do you have any aspirations to run in 2026? And if so, what are your plans to ensure that the Labour Party returns to government?
Well, first of all, I will do everything that I can to make sure that that we're back in government. I think for my people, it's critically important for them that we have another Labor government, and I know the majority of them strongly believe that as well. I think at the last election, they made it very clear. They gave their party vote to Labour in the Māori seats, and they gave the candidate vote to Party Māori. So they were giving us a clear message. They wanted a Labour government, but they wanted a strong Party Māori voice in there as well. And we have to take all that on board. I will do whatever I need to do to make sure that that happens, and that means I have to stand again. Then I'll do it. I haven't actually, to be honest, made that decision yet. I think it's something that you have to think carefully about. It took me a long time to decide not to stand in Te Taiho at the last election. I left it for a very long time because I wanted to talk to the people, and it was the opinion was divided. In the end, I went with the tradition, if you like, that if you're the Speaker of the House, then you don't stand in an electorate, and there's some pretty compelling reasons why you would do that, and so that's where I landed. I'm not in that position now, so I'm not ruling that out as an option either, but I'll make that decision probably in the next 12 months or so.
Well, I was just going to say we've already kept Adrian far longer than we were expecting. He's been incredibly gracious, but we should probably wrap it up and let him get back to being the incredibly busy parliamentarian that he is. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us. It has been incredibly insightful today. I hope it's not too windy and wet down there at the moment. I hear there's a bit of a storm meant to be coming in. So keep safe. Keep very safe.
Thank you.